Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon everyone. Could I have your attention please? I'd like to welcome you all here today. My name is Avinka Nadya and I am the marketing manager. And this is Jenny. She is my assistant manager. Please introduce yourself. Hello, my name is Jenny and I am the assistant manager in the company Setiabudi. Now let's get down to business. Today meeting about the impact pandemic marketing strategies for the next few months. We will talk about the impact COVID-19 to our company so that there is no significant decrease. COVID-19 is spreading human suffering worldwide. That is what we should all be focused on. But we are not doctors. We are economists. And COVID-19 is most definitely spreading economic suffering worldwide. The virus may in fact be as contagious economically as it is medically. The key economic questions addressed in the book are: how and how far and fast will the economic damage spread? How bad will it get? How long will the damage last? What are the mechanisms or economic contagion? And above all, what can governments do about it? Extraordinary times just 6 weeks ago. The world economy seemed well on the way to a nice recovery. Trade and political tensions were seen as not so bad, growth projections were rosy, and financial markets were cheery. Now all bets are off. As COVID-19 spreads around the globe, it has become clear that it has the potential to derail the world economy. The size and persistence of the economic impact is unknowable. Like a healthy person who catches the seasonal flu suffers a nasty but short-lived discomfort and is quickly back to full power, the crisis could be short and sharp. Such a V-shaped hit seems likely when COVID-19 was essentially a Chinese problem and China was dealing with it forcefully. Times have changed. This pandemic is different, economically speaking. Previous post-war pandemics hit nations that were at the time far less economically dominant, and those pandemics were far smaller. The number of COVID-19 cases is already 8 or 9 times larger than the number of SARS cases. At least as important is one sobering fact. This time the hardest hit nations include the G7 plus China. Medical data changes hourly, but as of 5 March 2020, the 10 nations hit hardest by COVID-19 is almost identical to the list of the 10 large economies in the world. 16% of world supply and demand GDP, 65% of world manufacturing, and 51% of world manufacturing export. What about your opinion, Jenny? The manufacturing sector is likely to get a triple hit. 1. Direct supply disruptions will hinder production. Since the disease is focused on the world's manufacturing heartland, East Asia, and spreading fast in the other industrial giants. Number 2, supply chain contagion will amplify the direct supply shocks as manufacturing sectors in less affected nations find it harder and or more expensive to acquire the necessary imported industrial inputs from the hard-hit nations and subsequently from each other. Number 3, there will be demand disruptions due to macroeconomic drops in aggregate demand and wait-and-see purchase delays by consumers and investment delays by firms. Manufactured goods, after all, are on the whole postponable and thus more susceptible to sudden stop demand shocks. As we saw in the Great Trade Collapse of 2009, of course, the service sector in all affected countries are hit hard, as restaurant and movie theater empty out. But it may well be manufacturing that takes the biggest hit. Manufacturing that takes the biggest hit. We do not have to be epidemiologists to understand the basics of epidemiology. Today, all well-informed economists should have some idea of the dynamics of spreading disease. Times of fear are also times of rumors and misinformation. Knowledge is the antidote book to outlines the maths of the simple, well-known sheer model of epidemics. The maths will be familiar to most economists, but the basic logic can also be rendered using an example. Yes, figure 1 is known as an epidemiology curve. The sharply rising part of this bell-shaped curve reflects the fact that each infected person infects more than one other person. So the percentage of the population that is infected accelerates at first, but the percentage of the population susceptible to infection remains high. The number of new cases eventually slows as there are fewer people to infect and a constant stream of people become non-infectious. They recover or die. So, how about solution, Jenny? When it comes the economic shocks, it is important to distinguish three sources, two of which are tangible. First are the purely medical shocks. Workers in their sick bed aren't producing GDP. Second is the economic impact of public and private containment measures, things like school and factory closures, travel restrictions, and quarantine. The third is literally all in our head. Globally, economies are connected by cross-border flows of goods, service, know-how, and people, financial capital, foreign direct investment. Some of these flows within nations are also likely factors connecting the medical and economic aspect of COVID-19. Consider them in turn, starting with banks, which provides a convenient rallying point for contagion involving financial capital, beliefs, and international banking. Good point, but let's table it until the next meeting. We also talk about our internet marketing and increasing our traffic. Finally, we ensure product design things right. That's all for today's meeting. Are there any questions? Before we finish? No? Great. I'd like to Avinka Nadya, our marketing manager, for coming here. Thank you for your attention, and I hope our company can increase from COVID-19. Thank you and good afternoon. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.